Welcome back to the Rainbow Six Siege Masterclass. Today we're going to be covering site setups on the theme park. We're going to start off in an initiation room and we're going to come all the way over to Bunk. Now, this wall in Bunk into the break room needs to be opened up almost all the way to the top or all the way to the top, as you can place thermite charges, ace charges, even Habana pellets on this wall. And due to the way hard breaches work, when they explode through the wall, the explosion damage actually carries out a bit. And because it is a hard breach explosive damage, even breaching charges will do this. They will then open up so much of the wall. Thermite charges will open up more, ace charges will open up less, Habana pellets and hard breaching charges up somewhere in between. Now on your way back from doing that, especially if you're the person with the shotgun, open the hatch. Then immediately come in, put in the crouch rotation, and then swing round and place another crouch rotation over here. Now, this is pretty much most of the work for someone that is doing site setup with a shotgun. Now there is a few more pieces, but we'll get into that in a minute. I'm going to start off by reinforcing both of these walls. Once that's done, we're going to come over to here, only reinforce one of the walls, and it's the one closest to the door frame. And then we're actually going to put some holes in the top of this wall so we can throw C4 over. Now, this is personal preference. Some people like to run head holes, some may even want to run some feet holes or no holes at all. I personally just prefer enough to throw like a C4 over into the security area. Be able to throw an ADS down on this wall. Now, if you are placing ADSs for this room and you do have this open, you want to place the ADS somewhat in the middle instead of over on this side where it may not reach that wall. That way it can cover both sides, and you do want ADSs, and that will also act as an ADS for back thrown when placed reasonably in the middle. And again, you may want to place other ADSs along this space, as this is quite a forced entry point, especially in later rounds when they're running out of options. This typically tends to be the pick. The reason why we don't have head holes is because this desk is pretty much the only point of cover, and you know swinging out that you're going to be able to spray over towards that desk very comfortably because you know where it is. Whereas they have to guess how deep into the swing you are, whether you're going to swing it and spray it close and then continue playing off of this pillar. It's just a little bit better in my opinion. Again, it's how you set up this wall is personal preference and what you like. Now, for holding this site, you definitely want a deployable shield, and you want to place it along here. You want to have it so it's sitting, so someone can be playing off of this door behind the deployable, but then also someone can come through this rotation and dual swing with the person simultaneously on the door to coordinate taking out someone peeking this area, which is actually very, very useful. But again, to play a deployable here, you do need lots of anti-utility. You will need some ADSs over here, preferably one at least, and then some Y magnets, like maybe one here and one here. So it's very hard to remove that deployable shield. Next wall we want to reinforce is just this single wall here, so the people in sight have a little bit more cover. We also want to open up head holes on this wall and reinforce one of them. Now, the way I like to hold cache is a little bit different to most. I like to have these head holes open, so that way the guy that is potentially over here playing the deployable shield can back off and help stop people from swinging into cache, but then also can still play off the deployable as needed in this area, which actually can be quite effective. Now, the last little bit of head holes or feet holes or those types of holes is going to be along this wall. Rough cut it doesn't really matter. This is just to deter people from sitting behind this area in cache and allow someone, if they are playing on the Dragon Stairs, to peek up and help fight people trying to run into cache. It makes this entire room very difficult to get in and out of. Now, some people like to have holes on this side or this side. It depends. If you're having a mirror set up, then you reinforce this wall, open up the holes. It's very then difficult to get rid of the mirror. And then you can play the mirror into cache, or you just don't play the mirror at all. Reinforce one of the two, right or left. Then again, that is personal preference. I would prefer left. That way you can play in this area and you have two peaks to play off of if this area is being more controlled by roam until it is not. I prefer just to have both walls reinforced. If they really want to run into cash and sit there doing nothing, if they do, again, it's going to be a very bad time because they can't really run up to the wall and sit in here for cover. And if they do, they're being swung in a hard corner and it's going to be very difficult for them to get in here. So I prefer both walls reinforced. Now, go over here, reinforce both of these walls in office. Once that's done, we want to open up to yellow stairs. Now, this is a personal preference thing. This is going to be a standing rotation. So this allows someone to play in and around this area in the vault to swing out and support anyone roaming or playing in this area or make their life inside of this area a little bit more difficult. It gives them something to be aware about. If you are going to play this, then you definitely need this wall reinforced. But then we do not have a fullback rotation for this wall, but it's going to be very unlikely that you're going to successfully have a fullback rotation on this wall, and you are going to need to have this wall electrified. Now, something to be aware of is vaulting up onto this is much easier than it used to be. You used to like run down, spam to get the vault, jump up, happy days, right? But now, as long as you're looking at the right spot and holding the vault key, you're auto mantle up. It was a silent change made to Siege. Now, this will be gone over in tips and tricks. But how this works is that's only when you're holding spacebar. It seems to be a bit weird, and I don't know if it's now fixed because it's been a while since I had this issue. I actually had to move my Alt and spacebar around in my keyboard itself. Not like physically, but in software, now my Alt key is pressing spacebar and my spacebar is now pressing Alt. I use spacebar to walk because it's naturally resting where my thumb is. And the Alt key for vaulting, as I don't do vaulting all the time, so I just need to move my thumb inwards and then I can hit the Alt key. Because of this, that meant that my spacebar was rebound to walk. But even when I was walking around site, and if you guys run into this problem, this is how you fix it. You would auto-mantle onto things, even if it's not your vault key. And then when you press your vault key, for example, you would also vault onto things. So how you fix this is, for example, whatever keyboard you have, you can rebind pretty much any key on most modern keyboards in the keyboard software. Just change the spacebar to your vault key, and then you have access to the auto mantle when holding your vault key, because it is now spacebar, and then put back on whatever you had for that key on where the spacebar is, if that makes sense. It's the only fix that I've found for it that was effective. I tried messing with settings, it didn't do anything. There was no way of turning off this auto mantle thing. As soon as like the vault prompt comes up, you auto mantle no matter what. There was no setting for this. I don't know if they are going to release a setting in the future, or there is already one released because I haven't bothered to go and look because I really don't care. But this is a solution for that problem. On to Bunk and Daycare. Now, this site is interesting. You can hold it in manner of different ways. There are extended holds that go into Shrine, but that's something that we'll talk about in a different video, as these require 4 to 5 man teams. 4-man teams are kind of a minimum because it is really dependent on 4 operators to set that site up really well, and then the random, say you are in a 4-man team, can just do what they want, but it's ideal if it's a 5, and then they can pressure, bring an operator, drop utility, and then go and roam. We're going to start off by reinforcing this singular wall, and then we're going to make a crouch rotation on the other side. We want to make this crouch rotation as small as possible. We want to be able to rotate very cleanly through it, but we don't want to open up too much. So if someone does rappel on the window, it makes their life more difficult trying to get a sight line into sight. But this rotation, they will be able to see, and that rotation will let them know that this area isn't as safe to just jump into, and that's also why we also have a rotation out to Arcade Balcony, and we can potentially even have like an echo, have a shield here, and play off the shield, and very comfortably rotate back in and play this area, swing out onto the balcony. You can also make this standing if you want to have wide swings out, but also be aware that there is the staircase over here, and when standing up and swinging out to a certain point, you are going to become visible. Now, we want to reinforce the middle wall in between the 2 sites. Now, how you open up to the right and left of this is personal preference. Some people will only have rotations on one. I like to have rotations on both. And wow, that is fantastic. I have fully reloaded my gun and it's still telling me to reload. Do you know Siege can't fix the sound? they add an auto vault feature that you can't turn off, and now you can't fully reload your gun unless I switch it, and then I'm guessing it will come back to... Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Now, I like to have head holes across this wall, and then have them slightly extended up, so it is vaultable in a pinch. It also means that someone, if you open up the head holes a little higher, can maneuver from, for example, the B-bomb to this table and pop up and peek into this area from different points, and it's hard for the enemies that potentially are all the way back here or even on the other side of this wall, which we'll get to in a minute, to see someone moving from these 2 points. Now it's a little bit lower, you can see very clearly, so if you have higher up head holes, it still allows you to peek. Now, I like to have a crouch rotation on this side of the wall, also meaning that you can see directly to this door, and it means that anyone playing in this area can help hold through the site if needed. Again, this is personal preference. You can make them both vault rotations. You could just have head holes and just have one vault rotation, but bearing in mind that this table is a very strong position, and if you really want, you can open up this portion of the wall and then push yourself up onto the boxes and look at someone swinging into the door from this point, and you could even leave the rest of this wall soft if you would like. Now, you want to reinforce the left-hand side and the right-hand side of the quad wall. This is actually quite important for the table peak, and trying to hold and electrify this wall is a pain. It's just a lot of effort for not much. If they're going to open it, it's going to be to their benefit. They're going to throw ace charges on it and have fully reinforced cover points and peaks. They're only going to open up certain points and sit really far back in daycare, and that's just not fun. What you can actually do is open up the top half of the wall. So when you get onto this table, you can then peek into daycare, have someone play up here with an ACOG, and you can literally see the tops of the head. And then you can also come over to here and get off-angle peeks all the way into daycare. And this makes them trying to take daycare very difficult, allowing the person in arcade to support your guy potentially playing on the stairs and in and around this area, as we're not going to play necessarily too much in the A site. That also brings me over to here. We want to reinforce both of the office walls, so we can have someone playing around yellow or make their job getting into the yellow stairs in this hallway much more difficult. Now, we only have 4 reinforcements left. We also want to open up this hatch. We want to reinforce both of these walls. Now, we have a few choices on how we spend our last 2 reinforcements. We can do right and left of the catwalk area, or we can utilize one of the reinforcements potentially over here on this wall for someone potentially to play in this area. That is up to you. I personally prefer to have both sides reinforced, so if they do get into daycare, they are limited in what they can and can't do. And again, it's very simple to get up here just holding that vault key. You can come up, reinforce the right wall and the left wall. The right wall is the most important going into the office vault, as this, again, as we saw, can really get some good swings into this area, and we don't want them to come from this side. We also want to electrify this wall and this wall and this back wall. These 2 corner walls could be very easily jammed off, also providing some anti-drone. You can quite happily mute jam these walls, but mute jammers could be better off used somewhere else. This site could be very preferable to someone playing castle, castling off this door, isolating this side of the map, or even isolating this door frame and then playing a little bit extended out, maybe isolating off these doors to make them really have to work to get to this side of the map, slow them down, and then fall back. Now we are on to Throne Room, one of the easiest sites in the entire game to defend, but if you don't do certain things, it can be very easily lost, and this requires, at least on this site, anti-utility and anti-breach. We're going to start off by going up and getting the hatch. Now, for this site, preferable, we want Kaid, Bandit, even a Mute. We want to get as much anti-reaching down as possible. We potentially want a Bandit tricking. Now, if you are now playing Theme Park in Siege X, this would be the first site that you want to go onto. As if they know that Throne Room is going to be difficult to take and you play it in the second round or even the third round, by the time that you are in those rounds, they could have already banned a Bandit, a Mute, and a Kaid, potentially, or one of them, or in different orders, depending on what round it is. But if they could only ban one of them, it would still make their job very difficult taking this site. Now, with the split hatch reinforced, you can reinforce off this wall, but there are a better placement to utilize the walls. Now we're going to want to reinforce these two walls and these two walls. Okay, once you've got the back throne walls done, you can come over and get these last two walls on the back of site. Now it comes over to the simple part. We want to actually open up some head holes along this wall, allowing people to support or potentially peek into the back of site much easier. A lot of people will go ahead and open up feet holes in this wall, and I actually hate that. In reality, I prefer to have this wall reinforced, and this is for good reason. It just allows someone to potentially play in this area much, much easier, play off the door. Especially if you're playing this site, having a Zami and a Jaeger goes nicely with at least 2 anti-breaches. If one is banned, which there should be, especially if you are playing this site first and the enemy's like, if they go throne, alright, we'll get rid of Kaid or Bandit. Kaid's not the end of the world. Bandit would be sad. As long as you got a Mute and a Bandit, or a Kaid and a Bandit, it's pretty happy days. If that is the case, and you only have 2 anti-breaches that you're going to utilize, then you want to have Jaeger or Azami, Mute, Bandit, or Bandit, Kaid, for example. So you can really block off these walls, hold them for as long as possible. You want to have an ADS somewhere over here, preferably like on this corner. It's just a little bit tucked away and it can catch any grenades that maybe get thrown over the wall. You can also potentially put an ADS behind here, but I do recommend just double ADSing this wall here. That way Azami can set up lots of barricades in these areas, making the split very hard to push. Wamai can then play inside a site, reinforcing certain points when utility starts going. The only vertical is in this area. Now for the last 2 reinforcements, we'll be out here in Dragon on the back of the Dragon itself, as this is a wall that looks directly into one of the more main entry points for sites in doorways wise. As the split door, the 2 reinforcements that you could put down over there are less important than these 2. As when you are in this area, both of the soft walls look into this, and they can have punch holes, they can be holding a weird angle, get some weird pixels, wall bang you through it. And it's just a mess, and it also means it's easier to see when people are on the back of the Dragon. Now, that's my personal preference for Throne Room. Let's move on to Lab, and I have a bit more of an interesting way to hold Lab. Moving on to the crazy white guy's house, we are going to open up a rotation next to this window, and we're going to open up a rotation in this corner, crouch rotations into the corner. Now, this is the only thing that should really stay the same between site setups, unless you're going to do like an open mirror on this wall and have it like reinforced. Other weird things that you can do. This site is very favorable to a castle. We're going to go upstairs and start using reinforcements first that will then allow us to dictate how we're going to reinforce downstairs. Now, just like Technoblade, legends never die. Now, moving on upstairs, we are going to want to hold this very similarly to the way that we held Bunk and Daycare. As there is vertical in this room, there's vertical here, there's lots and lots of vertical. Now, want to come over to the catwalk, hop up, reinforce this wall. As anyone swinging out in the lower 90 corridor will have some problems, especially if you want to play in this area, someone's on this wall, it can make life very, very difficult. We also want to reinforce both the office walls. Now, this is where things can start to differ. We also probably want to open up the hatch so anyone playing up here can rotate quickly down to site if necessary. Now, if you are playing a castle, you can have castle barricade off this doorway, and the doorway on the other side of this wall. You can play in and around this area, give them these spaces for free, or you can play it as if you're playing the site above and reinforce off these 2 walls and play a lighter hold of the one that we had before upstairs. Now, this still is expensive in reinforcements, and we also don't want people in this backspace, so again, just open up some feet holes to make them uncomfortable. Open up a rotation and throw in some feet holes, and then we can castle off this door as well, making this space very uncomfortable for anyone to push into. You can also add rotation onto this wall. You can add a vault rotation if you really want. You can even add the higher up holes to allow you to see into this space, or in fact just open up the entire wall. It's again personal preference. We do want to open up this wall, making their push into daycare traumatizing, especially if you held this site prior to holding the site below. If you made daycare very traumatizing for them, again, make it more traumatizing. Just they're going to need therapy after playing theme park against you at this point. Now, we have 5 reinforcements, and we really do have to choose how we're going to utilize these wisely. So there are multiple ways of doing this, but playing in and around this corridor can actually be very, very strong and very useful. So what we want to do is reinforce these 2 walls. Once that's done, we now have a choice. We want to castle off this door and play this corridor, open up 2 parts of the wall. We then are only left with 1 castle. We can castle this door, or, again, we can castle off both of these doors in split to make them taking this area much more difficult, whilst allowing our defenders to drop into here quite comfortably with these doors castled off if they haven't taken this space, and then we don't castle this door. But if we castle this door, we want to castle this, making our defenders' rotation down less optimal. So I would prefer to castle both these doors. You can just throw a barricade on this to cut lines of sight. It will be opened if it wants to be opened, you know? Now, we can open up head holes across this wall and then place down a reinforcement, allowing the site to help peek out into the hallway. As we need to hold bathroom and we need to hold the window, this site we can kind of just turn into a intermediary room, if that makes sense. You can just have it be there in the middle of everything, and it's just not going to do much. That way, allowing us to come through these rotations on the wall and move in and out of this area as needed. Now, we can either reinforce this and completely open up the corner and play out into this area, or we can have a reinforcement on this corner and then have head holes in between, allowing us to play off this corner and then also play into the site, allowing us to hold some tighter angles and peek certain things like the doors and then swing out into this corridor. If that is the case, we're also going to want this wall reinforced for our final reinforcement. And then to make anyone potentially playing in and around this area more uncomfortable, like going in between the doors, you can open up feet holes all the way across, and you can also open up head holes across this wall in this area, so you have another peek into sight. Running out of shotgun shells. How much of this you do and how much time you have to do these things is dependent on how many people you're playing with. Lab is not a site that you want to be holding or playing. It's something that everything else has gone terribly wrong. Let's go to lab. Let's try a pocket strat. Let's try go crazy here. Bring a bunch of anti-utility, loads of trap ops, and just take gunfights and see if we can win it. Like lab as a site is not a fun site to hold, but at least with something like this, you have a pretty strong chance at holding it. Anyways, thank you for watching this Rainbow Six Siege Masterclass. As always, links are in the description to Fiverr, where I offer one-on-one coaching. As always, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.